Hey guys, A13 Hockey Cards here, and today's going to be a little bit different of a video. With the hockey playoffs approaching tomorrow, I thought it'd be pretty fun just to go through my own personal predictions of what's going to happen. And I think I'm going to separate this video with the Eastern Conference and Western Conference, and just let it be known, these are all my own predictions. Like, I could be completely wrong with all of these, but I just thought it'd be fun and see what your guys' reaction is as well. So if you guys can see, I have like a billion notes for each specific series, and I'll just run through all of the best players, like kind of what their seasons were like, and just see who I think is going to win. And I'll try to put as much bias out of my predictions as possible. I'm a little biased to a couple teams just because I like them, but I put my bias aside and just looked at it as a series, standalone series, and yeah, let's just get into this. So let me know in the comments below too what you guys think is going to happen, if you guys think I'm completely off on my picks or if you think I got some of them right. But yeah, let's get into the first series. So the first one is going to be the Hurricanes against the New York Rangers. And so let me just go through some of the stats for each team and then kind of tell you what I think is going to go down in the playoff series. So the Rangers were 37-28-5 this year with 79 points, which landed them 7th in the Metro. And I think 10th in the Eastern Conference. And so, I mean, the Metro was really stacked this year. So, and the Rangers kind of turned it on late, so they were playing pretty good hockey. Their best forwards this year were Artemi Panarin with 95 points, which is crazy. Mika Zibanejad with 75 points, 41 goals in only 57 games played. He was on a record-setting pace for goals. And then Ryan Strome actually had a really good year again, with kind of breaking out with Panarin. He really found his game. And defensemen, we have Tony DeAngelo with 53 points, a great young defenseman, offensive defenseman, who's had some problems in the past, but he really clicked this year. And then Adam Fox, a rookie actually, with 42 points. I think he was a plus 22. Didn't get nominated for the Calder, but I mean, he's a great defenseman. And then this is where I think it really comes down to, or the series really comes down to this. So in goal, we have Henrik Lundqvist, who went 10-12-3. Didn't have that great of a year this year with a 3.16 goals against average and a 905 save percentage. So a little iffy, but on the other side, you have Igor Shesterkin, who only played 12 games. He went 10-2 with a 2.52 goals against average, as well as a 932 save percentage. So if you're just looking at the stats, I mean, he really showed out. And sorry about that, my air was going crazy. But Igor Shesterkin really showed out and showed everybody the goalie he's probably going to be for the future. But I was listening to the Spit and Chicklets podcast, and they were saying, even though Shesterkin is analytically the guy you want to go to, I think they're going to put Hank in net and just give him one last hurrah, unless he plays awful game one, and then who knows, all bets are off. But the Rangers this year were 5th in goals in the NHL, 234, which is crazy. They score on command with Zibanejad and Panarin. I mean, they just have firepower. But their defense is kind of suspect after DeAngelo and Adam Fox. They ranked 24th in goals against with 222 goals let in. And they were playing pretty good hockey to the end of the year. They were 5-4-1 in their last 10 games. So they were playing pretty good and really finding their stride, which is unfortunate that the season ended. But okay, so flipping sides, the Hurricanes were 38-25-5 with 81 points. 4th in the Metro and 6th in the entire Eastern Conference. So just like I was saying, the Metro was really stacked this year. Their forwards, are pretty nuts too. They have Sebastian Aho with 66 points, Teuvo Teravainen with 63, and then Andrei Svechnikov with 61. And another addition to their team is the Vinny Trocheck trade, which is just still really mind-boggling to me as far as why the Panthers let him go for what they did, and what they're in a playoff contention too. So it doesn't make any sense. But on defense, we have Dougie Hamilton, who has 40 points, and Jacob Slavin with 36. And they also acquired Brady Shea from the New York Rangers, who they're playing. So just an interesting little factoid there. But Dougie actually might be injured. They haven't really said what the extent of his injuries are, so we're kind of in a wait-and-see mode with him. But, if you guys watched any Hurricanes games this year, Dougie Hamilton was having one of the best years of his career. Every time he touched the puck, he just dominated. But they ranked 14th in goals for with 222, and only 7th in goals against. So they are a really defensively sound team. I mean, the likes of Jacob Slavin, Dougie Hamilton, they won't have Brett Pesce though, which is a big, I mean, he's not going to light up the league with points, but he's a solid defensive defenseman. And their last 10 games, they also went 5-4-1, and they were playing pretty good. They were kind of struggling at the end, but as far as their goalies, they're in a little bit of a pickle as well. They have James Reimer, who went 14-6-2, 2.66 goals against, and a 914 save percentage. And if you actually watched him this year, he was pretty solid. He really shocked me. And then you have Peter Mrazek, who went 21-16-2 with a 2.69 goals against and a 905 save percentage. So he was playing all right. He really, I mean, Mrazek's whole career has kind of been a roller coaster up and down. So I think they're going to go with Reimer. That's what I would do. And I think he's a lot better than people make him out to be. So I think this is really going to be a interesting series. I think it comes down to the goaltenders as well as the defense, because both offenses can really light it up. And I think after Panarin, Zibanejad, it kind of dips off a little bit, but you can argue the same with Aho, Teravainen, and Svetch. It's like, who are they really going to go to? Ryan Dzingel? So I think this is going to be a super close series. I think it's going to go all 5 games, and I think the Carolina Hurricanes are going to take it 3-2. I mean, I don't know. This really is a toss-up to me, honestly. But I just have a feeling the Hurricanes, with that playoff run they had last year, I think they have still a lot to prove and still have stuff left in the tank. So I'm choosing the Hurricanes 3-2 for that series and moving on. Okay, so the next series is going to be the Florida Panthers versus the New York Islanders. And this is by far one of the most wild matchups, I think, in a long time. Like, I just don't know what's going to happen. This has so many different potential outcomes that could happen. But let's just start with the Panthers. So they were 35-26-8, with landing them with 78 points. 4th in the Atlantic and 11th in the Eastern Conference. So as you can see, the Atlantic was a little bit weaker of a division this year. Some of their star forwards are Jonathan Huberdeau with 78 points, Alexander Barkov with 62, and Mike Hoffman with 59. So, I mean, if you watched any Panthers games this year, you know kind of their story. Like, they're an offensive juggernaut, but as far as defensively sound, they're not really all too locked down. But they do have some great defensive players, like Keith Yandel, who had 45 points, Aaron Ekblad, who had 41 points, but Ekblad might be struggling with some injury issues. I tried to find all the injuries before this video, but it seems like he's dealing with some, so we have to see with him. And as far as goalies, this is what it comes down to. This is what this entire series comes down to. Sergei Bobrovsky, who had an atrocious year for his standards, and when you're paying him $10 million a year for 8 years, but he went 23-19-6 with a 3.23 goals against and a 900 save percentage. So yeah, that's not going to cut it and win you a series. But he has shown up in the past. He had a great playoffs last year, and I just have a feeling that he's going to stand on his head and really just help the team move forward. But like I was saying, they ranked 7th in goals for, 231 goals in the year, and their defense was 28th in the league, letting up 28 goals against, 228 goals. So yeah, and their last 10 games, they were 4-4-2. So, I mean, they have some studs defensively. It kind of drops off a little bit after Ekblad and Yandel. They have Anton Strawman, who is a very, very underrated defenseman. I mean, obviously I'm biased with him being from the Bolts in the past, but I mean, if they can lock down defensively better than they have all year, and Bobrovsky plays better than, I mean, he can't play any worse. I mean, I guess he could play worse, but you know what I'm saying. I don't know. If they can really, they have the offense to beat anybody, and defensively they have the players, so we just kind of have to wait and see. And the Islanders, they were 35-23-10 with 80 points. 5th in the Metro, landing them 9th in the entire Eastern Conference. So, like I've been saying this entire time, the Metro is strong. On offense, they have Matthew Barzal with 60 points, Brock Nelson with 54, and Anders Lee with 43. So they don't really have like the star power, I guess, other than Matt Barzal. They kind of do it by committee on offense. And on defense, they have Ryan Pulock with 35 points. And don't discount him. He is a very criminally underrated defenseman. If you watch his game, he puts up the points, 35, but he's just a really, really solid defenseman all around. And then the second in defense was Devin Tays with 28 points. Their defense is not very good. From like what I didn't watch a ton of the Islanders solely for defense when I watched them this year. So I can't really attest to like how they lock down players, but just looking at the stats, I was kind of underwhelmed by their defense especially compared to the Panthers. And as far as goalies, it's kind of the same thing as some other teams, like with the tandem. They have Varlamov, who went 19, 14, and 6 with a 2.62 goals against and a 914 save percentage, and the German Greiss, 16, 9, and 4 with a 2.74 and a pretty identical save percentage at 913. And they ranked 23rd in goals for. So, I mean, if you know anything about the Islanders, they aren't a high-scoring team. They kind of just like lock teams down defensively and grind you out, which speaks to their 8th in goals for, with only letting in 193. In their last 10 games, they were such a weird team this year. They ended the season 2-4-4. And if you watch them at the beginning of the season, they had like a 10-game winning streak and like I think it was like 16 games at one point or something crazy. And they were just killing it. And then they struggled like crazy during the beginning of the middle of the season, and they just didn't end strong at all. And I think they're really gonna struggle to score in this offense or in this series. I think they're gonna play, the game that they always do defensively, but I don't know how well it's gonna work with the offensive firepower that the Panthers have. And if you're already struggling to score and a goaltender like Bobrovsky starts playing better than he has all year, I mean, that's just going to make things so much harder, in my opinion. And I think even though the Islanders might be the better team, I think the Panthers are going to take this series pretty soundly. I'm choosing them to win 3-1, and I could even see a sweep. But I'm going to throw the Islanders a game there just because I think they will win a game. But I think the Panthers I think their offensive firepower is just going to be too much for the Islanders to handle. But I thought that last year too, and I don't know, the Islanders showed up to play for at least one of the series. But so yeah, this is going to be 3-1 Panthers. Put that over there. Okay, the next series is going to be the Canadiens versus the Penguins. And this, I think, might be the most lopsided series out of all of the series, to be honest. But let's start with the Canadiens. They ended the season 31-31-9, 71 points, 5th in the Atlantic and 12th in the Eastern Conference. Some of their top forwards are Thomas Tatar with 61 points. Max Domi, who actually is going to play. He has diabetes, but I think he said he was going to play, which is huge because he's one of their best players with 44 points on the year. And then Brendan Gallagher with 43 points. Defensively, they're a little suspect, but they have Shea Weber with 36 points and Jeff Petrie with 40 points. And then it really comes down to goaltending. I mean, if Carey Price can play better than he did this year, he didn't have that great of a year. He was 27, 25, and 6. Kind of take the record out of it because as a team, they're not the best, But goals against was 2.79, and save percentage was 909, which it's all right, middle of the road as far as save percentage. Goals against is a little high, but I mean, for Carey Price, it's not good numbers. But if he plays well, who knows? This could be a series. So they ranked 19th in goals for with 212 and 23rd in goals against with 221. So that kind of goes with the narrative of not having the best defense and Carey Price not being Carey Price. In their last 10 games, they ended the year kind of on a skid, 4-5-1, just all right, not playing their best hockey, but not playing their worst. And on the other side of things, we have the Pittsburgh Penguins, who are 40, 23, and 6, with 86 points, landing them 3rd in the Metro and 5th in the entire Atlantic Conference, or 5th in the entire Eastern Conference, sorry. And forwards, I mean, we know their forwards. Geno Malkin, Sidney Crosby, Jake Gensel. Crosby and Gensel. Gensel was having a sick year, and I hate the Penguins, but you got to respect his game. And he was killing it, and then he got hurt. I think he played 39 games total with 43 points. Geno led the way with Crosby also missing some games. I can't remember how many games he played. I think it was like right around 42, maybe a little bit over 40, but Geno really led the way with 74 points. And on defense, we have Chris Letang, as always, 44 points, and a really breakout rookie year from John Marino, 26 points. I think he's a little bit older of a rookie, but still a great defenseman to add to your D-core. And then this is like potentially the biggest storyline in this series is the goaltending. I mean, you have Matt Murray, but Tristan Jarry really came out of nowhere, but he kind of just like made the team his for a long part of the season. But their records are kind of similar. It's really weird. Their records are similar, but their stats are completely opposite sides of the spectrum. So let's start with Matt Murray. He went 20-11-5 with a 2.87 goals against and a save percentage of 899. So sub 900, not very good. But I mean, we've seen him in the past. He's a great goaltender. He just kind of needs to, like Carey Price, just get back on track. But as far as Tristan Jarry, he went 20-12-1, so very similar records. But his goals against was a lot better, coming in at 2.43, and his save percentage was at 921. Sorry. So I think they're gonna go with Murray. I think it's kind of like the New York situation where you go with experience over stats, but I could be completely wrong and they go with Jarry. But I just have a gut feeling they're going to go with Murray. I just kind of, at least in game one, and kind of see how things go. But the Penguins in total were 13th in goals for with 224. Really took a dip because of Crosby and Gensel being out of, I think they'd be a lot higher. And then they're defensively sound. They're 11th in goals against with 196 goals on the year. But they really struggled at the end part of the season, and a lot of that had to do with injuries too. But they were 3-7, kind of coming down the end. But I don't think that really matters. I think this isn't going to be a series, honestly. I was going to choose the Penguins to sweep, but I'm just going to throw the Canadiens a game because why not? But I still have the Penguins taking this series 3-1. I think they're by far the better team, and the Canadiens are on the up and up with Nick Suzuki, and I honestly hope they lose and get Lafreniere. That'd be sick just to have a French Canadian in Montreal. That'd be so cool. But I think they have a bright future. I just don't think the future has come yet. So I think the Pittsburgh Penguins will take that easily. And the last series in the Eastern Conference is a banger. It's Toronto versus Columbus. If Toronto loses this series, I don't know what's going to happen to that team. But let's start with the Blue Jackets. So we have, they ended the year 33, 22, and 15, which is crazy. They had 15 overtime losses. So, I mean, that's kind of telling as far as like clutch situations. They're always in a game, but they never kind of, go over that hump. So I don't know, but they ended with 81 points, which was 6th in the Metro and 8th in the Eastern Conference. Some of their star forwards are Pierre-Luc Dubois, who had 49 points on the year. Gustav Nyquist had 42, and then Oliver Bjorkstrand had 36, and he's a really, really solid two-way offensive player. Can't speak. And then on defense, I mean, it's really a two-headed horse for them. They have Zach Werenski, who had one of the best years of his career, maybe the best, with 41 points. And then Seth Jones with 30 points. And I think he battled some injuries this year. I could be wrong, but I think he was out for a little bit of the year. And their goaltenders are kind of goaltending by committee as well, with Elvis Merzlikins having a little bit more of like the higher ceiling, I guess, as of right now. But he went 13-9-8 with a 2.35 goals against and a .923 save percentage. So his record wasn't there, but his stats were a little bit better than the next goalie I'll be saying, even though this next goalie had a better record. It's really, these stats are kind of weird, but Jonas Korpisalo went 19-12-5 and had a 2.6 goals against average and a save percentage of .911. So worse stats, but a lot better record. So I don't know if the team just, doesn't like Elvis, but yeah, who knows? But their offense, they just don't have a lot of offense. They ranked 29th in goals for with 180 goals. It's kind of like offense. They really play low-scoring games, but they ranked 4th in goals against. So that's kind of their narrative. They really lock you down. They're kind of like the Islanders. They do it by committee. They lock you down. They're not going to score 5 goals a game, but they're not going to let up that many goals either. So this series, I'll get into it in a little bit, but it really comes down to goal scoring from the Maple Leafs. And in the last 10 games, the Columbus Blue Jackets went 3-4-3, so just kind of middle of the road, nothing great, nothing bad. I mean, if you take the overtime losses, it's 3-7, but yeah. So the Maple Leafs had the exact same amount of points this year as the Columbus Blue Jackets, but had a lot less OT losses. They were 36, 25-9, 3rd in the Atlantic and 6th in the Eastern Conference. Some of their star forwards are Austin Matthews, 80 points, 47 goals, I think, this year, which is just insane. The kid's lights out. Mitch Marner, 67 points, and Jonathan Tavares at 60 points. Their defense is really when it comes into the question for the Leafs. But, I mean, if you look at the names, to me, it's like, I don't get how they're so bad. I really don't. But when you watch them, you figure out why. They had Tyson Barrie, 39 points, really one of the best offensive defensemen in my eyes. offensively. Defensively, he's a little suspect here and there in his own zone, but then you have Morgan Riley, 27 points, who was hurt for a lot of the year. Maybe not a lot of the year, but at least some of the year, and he's one of the best defensemen in the league, I think. Morgan Riley's just so solid all over. And they also have Jake Muzzin. I don't have how many points he had in the year, but I mean, he's a great defenseman. And as far as goalies, they have Jack Campbell, who I don't have his stats in front of me. I don't think he's going to be playing much unless Freddie Anderson goes down. But Freddie went 29, 13, and 7 with a 2.85 goals against, not the best, and 909 save percentage. And that has to do with a lot of the defensive mishaps that occurred in front of him this year. So, I mean, he's a solid goaltender, and we've seen that he can stand on his head when it needs to be done, and that's a huge thing in the playoffs. So they ranked third in goals for with 238 goals, 27th in goals against. So pretty much the opposite of the Blue Jackets. It's really weird. Like, they can't score, but they won't let you score. And then the Maple Leafs score a ton, but they get scored on a ton. So I really think it comes. In the last 10, they were 5-4-1. So playing decent hockey. I don't think the Maple Leafs can lose this series. I don't think they will lose this series. I think they'll outshoot the Blue Jackets like 3-1, to be honest. And I think the young, like Marner, Matthews, Nylander, Kapanen, they all know this is like game time, and they're going to be amped up and ready to go. I think the Leafs could potentially sweep this series, but also thought that with the Lightning last year, and we all know how that went. So I'm going to say it's 3-1 Leafs. Give Columbus a game. But, I mean, this could be a series. If Elvis or Korpisalo just stands on their head and Columbus just plays lockdown hockey, who knows, dude? Who knows? But, yeah, so those are going to be my picks for the Eastern Conference. Stay tuned for my Western Conference picks. I'll do another video just like this one and let you guys know what I think is going to happen. So thank you guys, as always, for watching, and I hope you guys all have a great rest of your day.